Hey everybody, it's Bob Crossan, Senior Managing Editor for Water and Waste Digest again, and throughout the rest of the year we are featuring our 2020 WWD top projects. And today we're going to talk about the Grand Forks Water Treatment Plant project. So today I have with me Jason Whitesock, Todd Feland, Wayne Gerszewski, Melanie Parvey, and John Goetz. They are involved with several aspects of this project, starting with Jason. He is the Regional Manager for Advanced Engineering and Environmental Services, AE2S. Wayne Gerszewski is the project manager for that same company and also for this project. And then from the city, we have Todd Feland. He is the Grand Forks, North Dakota City Admin. We have Melanie Parvey, who's the Waterworks Director for Grand Forks. And lastly, John Goetz. He is the Water Plant Supervisor. So thank you all. I appreciate you all taking the time today to talk a little bit about this project and what made it so special. Congratulations on a top project win.
Thank you.
So I wanted to start kind of with a little bit of an overview. So Todd, going with you first, could you tell me a little bit about the background on this project? And also a little bit of the scale and the size of Grand Forks itself, just to give us some context there.
Grand Forks, we're in northeast North Dakota. We're on the border of Minnesota. So we're near the Canadian border. And so Grand Forks lies along the Red River of the north. And really, we draw our source water from two rivers, the Red River and the Red Lake River come into Grand Forks, and hence our name, Grand Forks. So we have two rivers that come into Grand Forks, and that it so happens to be those are our two source waters that we draw upon. This is really an important project it's really a capstone project, the Grand Forks Regional Water Treatment Plant. We serve our 60,000 people in Grand Forks. We also serve, we have a regional airport that's outside the city, and we also have a Grand Forks Airforce Base that we serve. So we not only serve the city of Grand Forks itself, but we also serve the region. And I think that'll be more and more as we move forward in history of trying to regionalize drinking water with economies of scale. So I think this will be an asset that will serve above and beyond the community and will serve the larger region. It's really a capstone of probably 20 plus years of work. One of the seminal events in Grand Forks was a 1997 flood. It was a historic flood that inundated the city. And out of that came a kind of a renewed master plan of what we should do with our drinking water system. And that post that 1997 flood, we moved forward with certain parts of that master plan to include a new raw water intake on the dry side of the levee. And we should note, as part of that 1997 flood, the city was really fortunate to get Corps of Engineers to move forward with a flood protection project that really secured the city over that that following 10 years after the flood. So a lot of our assets now are on the dry side of the levee, to include a new raw water intake that got put in place that draws water from both rivers that I noted, and is on the dry side of the levee. So that got concluded in the early 2000s, along with a clear well and pump station on the west side of the city that really is associated and with where the new water treatment plant site was. And the decision was made at that point that when we did move forward with a new water treatment plant, that we would move it to the west side of the city, more of an industrial park and away from the river. And then that will would have set up further redevelopment in our downtown area. So less industrial look and more of a mixed use development opportunity. And so if you look at Grand Forks as part of that master plan, we did put a few of the pieces of the puzzle together. As noted, the raw water intake, the clear well and pump station, and some of the transmission lines. And so over the last 20 years, what we've been doing is, I think really one of the really innovative pieces of this is the raw water intake has been functioning well. The current water treatment plant that's going to get decommissioned would treat the water, and then that treated water would go out west of town to our clear well and pump station, and then be pumped into our distribution system for contact. So now what's happening currently, which is I think really a renewal of those same transmission lines, now instead of having treated water, we'll have raw water from our intake that will go to our water treatment plant, then to our clear well, and then into the distribution system. So I think it's a really terrific option. You think 20 years later, we're using those pipelines now for a a different purpose, but served both purposes. So I think it's really a really great highlight of a master plan. And as we call the water plan, it's really the final piece of the puzzle as we move forward. So it's really a 20-year plus story. And I think the exciting part it is action master planning, getting to final action and bringing everything together. So it's really a terrific story and over time that we've been able to execute.
Yeah. So one of the things with this project too, you guys chose CMAR for this. Could you talk a little bit, maybe Melanie can touch on this too, about kind of the discussion that you went through on alternative delivery choices and why you landed with CMAR for this specific project?
I can start, Bob. I think if you, another thing that happened in North Dakota over the last 20 years, we had this oil boom in fracking. And at the time when you looked in, when we were considering how to deliver this project, we'll say in that 2014, 13, 14 timeframe, North Dakota was going through a historic boom due to the oil fracking and in the Bakken. And it was really incredibly hard to get competitive bids at that point in time because there were so many resources that were going to contractors in our region too that fracking boom that really had a lot of associated infrastructure development going on. And so we were trying to find a way, how could we deliver this project in a real competitive bidding environment? And so we decided to move forward with the CMAR process, and we thought that would be the best way for us to bid this in a way that we could break down the bidding parcels of the project in a more competitive way and get more contractors associated with this project as opposed to having like 3 large contractors where we didn't think we would get real competitive bids. So that's why we did that. The other thing was time frame. We had to get this project going in advance of late in 2016. So I think those really paid off. We got competitive bids at a time that it was really difficult to do that. Number 2 is that we had a time frame. We needed to get started at the end of the CMAR process allowed us to the entire design move forward. So I think those are the 2 big reasons why we move forward. And I would defer to Melanie. And further, we had a terrific process that we arrived at our CMAR contractor.
And like Todd mentioned, we've worked with advanced engineering for years on our water projects. I just came on as the director in 2014, so just prior to working with them. And Wade actually worked on, the scoping for looking at how we were going to hire a CMAR, and it was quite an extensive process. So I think we did really good due diligence for the city of Grand Forks, looking at a number of facilities. There was an interview process, and then we also visited the facilities, we visited the CMAR themselves to make sure that we knew what we were doing in picking the right team to work with advanced engineering, because we brought them in when we were still designing the project. So that was part of the desire to bring on a CMAR team, is to be able to have that support, that expertise of that construction come in while we were still designing and making sure that we're doing the right thing for our community. I don't know, Wayne, if you have anything to add to that.
Another, I think, important thing that the CMAR kind of brought to the table for the city was that through their bidding process, they really break the project down into a lot of small pieces. I think there were like 52 different bid packages for the project. And through that bidding process that they used, they were able to use, I believe, close to, somebody could quote me if it's close to like 70% local subcontractors for the construction of the project. So it kept the workforce for the city of Grand Forks, up and booming and busy and those dollars within the city. So that was a really important, I think, thing for the project. Another thing for Fred's benefit for the water treatment plant, it allowed the CMAR to work with the various suppliers and whatnot, and they could work with those suppliers and then potentially incorporate desired equipment and standardizing of equipment across the facility. So like, for instance, if there was a certain type of valve operator that the city really wanted, we could try to standardize that across the whole facility to ease up on the requirements for spare parts and things like that in the future. So I think that was another benefit that CMAR really brought to the project for us.
Yeah. So pivoting a little bit, I wanted to talk a little more about the plant itself. And John, maybe you can jump in on this one. According to the nomination form we had, it said that the plant has 2 treatment trains running in parallel. Could you talk about the trains for each and why this was a goal for that facility in the end?
Yeah, certainly. This is a very unique treatment plant. We do have 2 sets of trains that run parallel within the treatment structure. We have a conventional treatment plant that we've been using for 60 years down at our old treatment plant. The part that we added that was different was a membrane train. So we have UF up front and RO on the back end to do some polishing. One of the reasons why we went with a dual hybrid treatment plant is so we can always put wet water out the door. We have a very challenging river source that is high in total organic carbons, high turbidity. It's very hard. So we just wanted to always be able to put out wet water and keep the citizens of Grand Forks with drinking water. That's our main reason on why we went with a dual train. The membrane train that we decided to go with is for future regulations. We have all these emerging contaminants that are coming down through the EPA that they're stressing all treatment plants up and down the Red River. So that's what our main goal is for on our membrane choosing for running. And then Wayne Gerszewski also has been instrumental in us choosing the membrane trains and going with the convention. And Wayne, if you want to add anything else on our hybrid treatment plant.
Yeah, Fred, I think that was a really good summary. With the 2 parallel trains, Fred's comment about always wet water, that was a great comment. One of the city went through a pretty elaborate decision-making process. It's called the Kepner-Trago decision-making type of a model. And through that what the city does is they different stakeholders in the project, from operators to the city administration to the engineering team to maybe even some city council members. People were involved in what was important for the water treatment plant for the city of Grand Forks. Operators versus administrators versus engineering. Everybody has a different opinion of what's important. So the city and the engineering team came up with a list of things that were important. They looked at a completely conventional plant using advanced treatment versus a completely membrane plant using all membrane treatment, or a hybrid plant that used a combination of conventional and membrane treatment. And then from all the important aspects from the different groups were then basically scored and weighted across the 3 different potential treatment plant concepts. And in the end, even though the hybrid maybe was a little bit more expensive for the city of Grand Forks, it had so many benefits to meet those flashy river conditions that Fred mentioned, that it really kind of boiled down to what does the city want for the best long-term solution. And then the hybrids facility was selected. And then with that facility and the way that the facility is laid out on the project site, it's a 20 MGD facility right now with roughly 10 MGD conventional, 10 MGD on the membrane side. We can expand either membranes or conventional, either direction with relative ease, just the way the facility is laid out, by just basically flipping to the north and to the south on the site. So it's a very flexible facility. And again, it gives Fred all the tools that he needs with all the different treatment technologies that were incorporated in the facility to meet all the current and future type regulations that could be coming down the pipe. So
yeah,
a little bit more of a summary there.
Yeah, and I know that there were some modeling tools used with this as well. Would you like to talk a little bit about that? Like, what tools did you guys use? How did they aid with design, construction, all that kind of stuff?
Sure. I think I was thinking on the modeling, I saw that question, kind of wondering, where I should go with that. And I think one of the main things that came up for me was that through the design, in the first parts of the design, the decision was made to incorporate 3D, a 3D model for the entire facility. So we used an Autodesk program called Revit, and the entire facility from the process to the structural, all the mechanical, everything is in this Revit model. So it's a 3-floor structure, covers about 200 and some thousand square feet. So there's a lot of infrastructure, a lot of pieces and parts to this facility. So to make everything work together and to be able to see that in a 3D model and to be able to explain this construction to people, to bidding contractors and whatnot, that was almost invaluable. Plus it allowed the design team to look at potential conflicts during the design, and then also contractors used it during the construction to look at the model for how to route the various components that they have to install within the facility. And then working with the Revit model, we cut 2D drawings, and with the 2D drawings and the model working together, it gave everybody that better picture of the facility to make it a more seamless type of construction. Also, the Revit model can be used in the future for BIM, or Building Information Management. And with all the components having their distinct labels and numbering system, tag numbers that are used, in the future, the whole facility could be put into an information management type system, and we can continue to use that model for future expansions and whatnot. So I think it was a real benefit to the project.
Yeah, Jason.
To add a little bit to what Wayne's talking about there, one of the other processes that we went through was selecting the HMI platform, the most state-of-the-art platform that's going to be able to integrate all of these systems together. So we had a pretty extensive evaluation of 4 major HMI software platforms. And in the end, we chose to go with a Viva system platform and their InTouch OMI visualization software. Mainly is for expandability purposes, reusability. It was designed and put together so it's not just for the water treatment facility, it's for the entire city. So that was one of we spent quite a bit of time evaluating and finding out what was the right fit for the city for this project, and what can be used over the next 20 years, next 50 years. So that was my role in the project.
Yeah. So what I wanted to ask, kind of like the effectiveness of these tools as well, and just kind of get experiences from each of you from your perspective of, like what was it like using these tools? How effective are they? Does that influence the way that you want to look at future projects of this magnitude? I'll start with Wayne on that one, but we can have Todd and Melanie jump in on that too.
Well, I think, the use of these modeling tools, especially the Revit, it is becoming more and more, I think, the standard in the industry to use these type of tools to when you are designing a facility, be it it maybe has some limitations on some smaller projects just because of some of it's got a few inefficiencies and some time consuming things for some smaller type projects. But when you get into the medium to the larger side projects, I think they're real handy tools, and something that more and more firms are using with across the board to implement that 3D approach. So
I think it was important, as noted, is number one is that the city of Grand Forks does we have a large portion of the water, wastewater, and stormwater systems, and so whatever tools that we picked with the drinking water side right here, that we could sync those same tools across our organization and the other water related functions. And so we didn't have separate systems across. So it was important for the water treatment plant, but it's also important for all the other enterprises that we do lead and operate to. And so that was the important piece of trying to integrate that with other operations. I think the other really strong piece, and Melanie has done a great job with this, integrating operators into this. And we talked about having all the stakeholders as part of decision making. And sometimes you forget the people that have to operate day to day. And she did a really great job of, along with John Goetz here, integrating operators so that when you get to start up, they've been part of planning, engineering, design, and construction, and ultimately startup. And that's really paid off as part of getting things started up and moving forward, of having the whole team involved and having their fingerprints on all the different aspects of getting to start up an operation.
Sure, and I think I would just add that we're pretty fortunate to be able to have the assistance of advanced engineering and have them be quite progressive, looking at all the technology and the new, new software programs that we can use. So anything that can give us more data to invest in our infrastructure is really going to benefit us. So I think we'll continue to do that. I'm not sure if we've got another large project like this one coming up in the next 5 to 10 years. Hopefully not, right? But like Wayne said, we do have a lot of smaller projects and just continue to learn and use whatever type of technology we can to make good decisions.
Yeah, John, I wanted to direct a question to you about this. Todd brought up getting operators involved in this as well, and giving you some ownership of this as well. How did you feel about this whole process in that regard with it when it comes to the modeling and being a part of the whole project?
Yeah, that was definitely fantastic. We've had operators involved in this from the start. We couldn't have done this without the operators. There's not one of us that has all the answers. So we made this a collaborative effort in designing this facility. If you ever should get to North Dakota, excuse me, I'd love to show you this facility. It's a fantastic design. We toured many facilities before we started the design of this. And the one thing that we've always found out, that the operators and the people spaces are always kind of one of the last things that are designed. So that's one of the things we took into account here. We are a 24/7, 365 facility, and we always have people here. So we made sure that it was comfortable for the operators, for the staff that is working out of this facility. The control room is second to none. Comfortable for the operators to spend, their 12-hour shift there. So, and again, to go back to talking some of the CMAR things, it was great to work with the CMAR and being able to implement some of the equipment and vendors that we've worked with for many years and that we trust. This facility is based on trust and built on trust. When you bring contractors in and to do a $150 million water treatment plant, we have to have a trust. Again, we're supplying a product to the citizens of Grand Forks that is second to none. We were meeting all of our regulations at our old treatment plant, and we are well beyond meeting our regulations now with this new hybrid facility. It's absolutely incredible, and I'm proud to be part of this project. My operators are proud to be part of this project, and we are very excited to start showing this facility off.
Yeah, well, and we're proud to have you as one of our top projects this year. I appreciate you all again for taking the time to speak with us and giving us a little more insight and details into this project. So thank you all again.